Everybody. Hello, everybody. This is Timothy Tutt. I'm the advisor to the WSAB, the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board. And I want to welcome everybody to the first virtual public meeting of 2022 for the board. We're going to spend the next few minutes going over the technology to be used during today's board meetings so that we all understand how to participate in the meeting. Next slide, please. So there are a variety of participation options. Please choose just one participation option to avoid any feedback that may be caused. Zoom is the one option that we're all familiar with these days. You can also participate by phone. Oral comments are possible by dialing that number on your screen and entering in the passcode. And for the public comment portion of the meeting, when you're on the phone, you would dial #2 to be placed in a queue. And then there's also an email option. Written comments may be sent by email or mail to wsab@energysafety.ca.gov. If there are any technical issues that you're having accessing the meeting, support staff is available to help. So please, again, email that WSAB address or call myself, Tim Tutt, at 916-216-4539, and we will attempt to help you. Next slide, please. So this is I'm sorry. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Chair Block now, and she's calling the meeting to order, I believe.
Great. Thank you very much, Tim. I call this meeting to order. Today is February 23rd, 2022. This is the first meeting of 2022 for the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board. My name is Jessica Block, and I will chair this meeting. I'd like to begin by thanking my fellow board members for being with us today in this continued virtual setting. I look forward to meeting with you in person again soon, which may be our next quarterly meeting. I'd like to thank Justin Ander, our IT professional, for his assistance in ensuring that this meeting will run smoothly. I'd also like to thank our advisor, Tim Tutt, and our support staff, Teresa Graber. And I'm just going to say that twice. Thank you both, Tim and Teresa. We couldn't be here without you. Okay, Tim, I'll take it back to you for the Pledge of Allegiance. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Chair Block. Now we're going to move into the Pledge of Allegiance. So as you wish, follow after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. The pledge has happened. I'll turn the meeting now over to Teresa Graber for a brief health moment and a recognition of Black History Month. Next slide, please, Teresa.
Thank you, Tim. Thankfulness, how gratitude can help your health. Gratitude is more than a buzzword. It's a habit and practice that may actually change your perception of well-being. Gratitude is good medicine, says Robert A. Emmons, PhD, a professor of psychology at the University of California, Davis, and author of The Little Book of Gratitude. Clinical trials indicate that the practice of gratitude can have dramatic and lasting effects in a person's life. It can lower blood pressure and improve immune function. Being grateful is the gift that seriously keeps on giving, right? Who couldn't use all those benefits right now? Next slide, please. In celebration of Black History Month, the first Black fire chief in the United States, Patrick H. Raymond, was born in 1831 and appointed to the fire department in the early 1850s. Assigned to Hydrant Engine Company number 4, he was appointed chief engineer, chief of department of the Cambridge, Massachusetts Fire Department on January 5th, 1871. He was pensioned on April 17th, 1879, and died on July 28th, 1894. Chief Raymond is believed to be the first Black fire chief in the United States. Engine Company number 5 in Inman Square, 1384 Cambridge Street, was organized on November 30th, 1874, and was named Patrick H. Raymond Steam Engine Company number 5 in honor of Chief Raymond. The company is still in service today in a newer firehouse at the same location. Next slide, please. Once again, we value public participation and comment. All the information about this meeting can be found on the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board website, energysafety.ca.gov/WSAB. Links to all the documents that we will be discussing today can be found there. If you'd like to participate again in today's public comment, you can call in or use the raised hand function on Zoom. And to call in, once again, that number is 1-866-390-1828, and the passcode 787909, and then press #2 to be placed in a comment queue. Now I'd like to turn the meeting back to Chair Block. Next slide, please.
Okay. Thank you, Teresa. Let's go over today's agenda. First, in a moment, we're going to begin today's meeting with public comment. Then after public comment, we'll discuss and vote on the minutes from December 7th, our last board meeting. And then third, the board will discuss its 2022 work plan. Then we'll hear an update from the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety. After that, there will be a discussion on the POU wildfire mitigation plan guidance recommendations, which is the bulk of the work we've had. And we'll have a brief closed session following that, and then we'll adjourn. I'd like to also open by saying that I'm really pleased to be chairing my second meeting of the board. I'm excited to discuss the board's work plan for the year with my fellow board members. The draft plan makes clear we have a lot on our plate this year, and looking forward to being able to do much more work, and with also the opportunity of potentially meeting in person this year. The focus of this meeting in my mind is the board's advisory guidance for the POU 2022 WMPs. We expect to adopt our draft recommendations today, and it's clear that the POU WMPs have generally improved and progressed from our initial review effort in 2020. So I'm really pleased to be working with the POU community and associations on wildfire mitigation efforts. I'd like to ask my fellow board members if they have any opening comments. Is there anybody who would like to say something? Diane.
Hi. Hello, I am Diane Spellman, the vice chair of the board. And I just wanted to note for historical purposes that it's been almost 2 years since our last in-person board meeting. And when we look back, it's hard to believe that we actually had that meeting. I think it was on March 11th in person. But we've stuck together, we've held together, we've really accomplished a lot. And I just want to acknowledge the rest of the board and how you've, through everything in the pandemic, really delivered our products and really engaged in our process. I also want to thank any members of the public who are out there who have been following us, that we really appreciate your input and your continued support of our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Feldman. Is there any other board member who would like to make any opening statements? Okay, so let's move to public comment. Next slide, please. Great. Please begin your comment by stating your name and organization. I think I should leave that to Mr. Ander. Mr. Ander, is there any public comment on the phone line?
No hands raised currently. Just a reminder, it is #2 to raise your hand if you're dialing in.
Should we wait a minute or should we proceed?
I feel we could proceed.
Okay. Just let me know if somebody shows up. Let's check the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board email box. Teresa, do we have any email communication?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And so, Mr. Ander, so we have nobody on Zoom nor the phone? Is that correct?
Right, no raised hands.
Okay. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that public comment is very important to us as a board. We'd like to just wait one more minute if anyone else needs to join. And for the record, if you couldn't make it and you're viewing this after the fact, please do email us at wsab@energysafety.ca.gov. And we as a board and our support, Tim Tett, will help respond and would love to hear your feedback.
There is one raised hand.
Great.
I'm going to take down the PowerPoint and bring up the timer. Not sure how to pronounce your name, but Cheyenne, I'm going to allow you to speak.
Hi there. My name is Shayna Nanavati, and I'm a research organizer with Reclaim Power. I figured I would just come on because public comment is important. So thank you all for just making the space. I don't have too much to say because our work really focuses on the investor-owned utilities, specifically PG&E. And I will say that one thing that would lower my blood pressure and boost my immunity is for PG&E to stop causing wildfires and burning down our state. But on the topic of this meeting, I guess, yeah, it was really great to see the what I felt like the advisory opinion for POUs and co-ops looked very cohesive to me. And I think I just have a question for you all if later on in the presentation, maybe we'll get to this, but I'm curious kind of what the difference is between the kind of the breadth of the advice that you all provide the public utilities and co-ops versus kind of the more narrow recommendations made for the IOUs. Yeah, so I just was kind of curious about why there's a difference in that, the level of kind of accountability that is being proposed for the different ownership models of the utilities. So that's all. Thank you.
Shayna, will you tell me again who you represent?
I'm with Reclaim Our Power, the utility justice campaign.
Okay.
Chairman Block,
And yes.
I believe I can in part answer, I'm sorry, the individual's question.
Excellent. Go for it.
So when the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board offers advice upon both the IOU's wildfire mitigation plans, those wildfire mitigation plans are developed under the guidance of the Wildfire Safety Group. And they're very structured, they're very rigid. They do change, and we offer advice to the safety group to alter the guidance for the wildfire mitigation plans. but we're offering advice in the context of those wildfire mitigation plan guidelines. Now, when it comes to the POUs, they are not regulated by the safety group, and they develop their own wildfire mitigation plans that are not structured, and they vary wildly. And so that is why we give more detailed advice to the POUs than it may seem in the context from what you're observing for the IOUs. I hope that makes sense.
Shayna, did that answer your question? Or part of your question?
It did. Thank you so much. And I guess I would just add to my public comment, if I can, then, that it would be great to for across these agencies to have a higher level of accountability for the investor-owned utilities than currently is being asked of them within their wildfire mitigation plans. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And thanks for your comment. Let's see. Justin, are there any other commenters that have shown up?
No other hands raised.
Okay. Okay, so this will close public comment for the meeting. Let's move to the next topic, voting on our December 7th meeting minutes. I am sure everyone on the board has had the opportunity to read the minutes prior to the meeting. Are there any edits or additions to the meeting minutes? Cool. Hearing none, I move for a vote to adopt the meeting minutes. Do I have a?
Second.
So move.
We've got a
Second.
first and a second. So we will do a roll call vote on the motion to adopt the December 7th meeting minutes. For my, do I do that, or Tim, do you do that? I forget.
Tim should call the roll.
Tim, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We're calling a roll call vote on the motion to adopt the December 7th board meeting minutes. Can I get a response from Chair Block?
Aye.
Board Member Armstrong?
Aye.
Board Member Mader?
Aye.
Board Member Sifford?
Aye.
Board Member Porter?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Fellman?
Aye.
Yeah. Thank you for that vote. Chair Block, I'll turn the meeting back over to you. 6-0, the minutes are adopted.
Excellent. Okay, good. Next slide, please. Actually,
It's back to me.
it's back to you. Yes.
Yeah, I am going to provide a brief summary of the board's 2022 work plan. Next slide, please. So the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board has two main responsibilities, and this might help the public commenters question earlier in the public comment period as well. The first is to provide advisory opinions on publicly owned utility wildfire mitigation plans. So the board in that role reviews the 50 or so electric publicly owned utility and rural electric cooperative WMPs, and provides the draft guidance opinions or recommendations on changes to future WMPs for those entities. And that's one of the documents we're going to be covering today for this year. The second main role of the board is to provide recommendations to the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety, which is the entity that succeeded the Wildfire Safety Group at the California Public Utilities Commission. And that is regarding the WMPs for in the investor-owned utilities, the small and the medium jurisdictional utilities, also investor-owned, and independent transmission owners. So those are overseen, as I mentioned, by Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety and the CPUC, not by our board. but our board provides recommendations to Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety on any additional WMP requirements to include in the guidelines for the following year. Any compliance issues for WMPs that need to be addressed, and we weigh in on the safety culture assessments of those entities. And then other recommendations as needed or requested by OEIS. So those are the two main responsibilities of the board, and that's where you get some of the difference between the what appears to be oversight of IOU WMPs and POU WMPs. Next slide, please. So this is a timeline of our work plan. We're right at the 223 board meeting in February, where we're hoping to adopt the POU advisory guidance document, which we first posted on the 10th of February. Atop the slide at green is inputs from the IOUs to the process. So there's, I'm sorry, that's a board product. And we're planning on dividing up our recommendations to OEIS this year into two groups. The first is additional recommendations for additional WMP guidelines or guideline requirements. And we're hoping to adopt those recommendations at the April board meeting, which we're going to be scheduling soon. And then the second group would be the IOU compliance and safety culture recommendations, which we will go through and adopt by the statutory end of June requirement sometime in June, and we're hoping to schedule that June board meeting as well soon. And then we'll be revisiting our POU advisory guidance role in the second half of this year to again put out some guidance documents for the 2022 POU WMPs, which, as you can see in purple down in the middle of the screen, are due at the end of June. So we're hoping to, the process that we're finishing today, adopting guidance for the POU WMPs for 2021. We're hoping to finish well before the end of the year, a few months ahead of how we're doing it this week, this time, in part because of staffing and other issues that we faced last year. There's also the red shows some inputs to the process from the to the IOU process that I mentioned. So IOU WMPs have been coming into the dockets at OEIS in February on the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th. And there's going to be some additional review and workshops covering those WMPs by OEIS coming up. On May 6th, the smaller IOUs and ITO WMPs are due. And then Energy Safety will take all of the WMP input as well as board input that we provide and provide input to the California Public Utilities Commission for the next round of WMPs in the middle of the year. We do expect to have also some technical workshops in the summer-fall timeframe. We haven't fully defined exactly what those workshops are going to be yet, but we expect to be able to bring in some technical experts and discuss particular topics related to wildfire and wildfire mitigation. Next slide, please. So this leads to a set of publications from the board. The first is the one that we're discussing and adopting today, the Guidance Advisory Opinion for 2022 POU WMPs. The second, again, would be those two products that we're going to be providing to Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety, recommendations on additional WMP requirements in the April timeframe, and recommendations on compliance metrics and safety culture assessment in the May-June timeframe. And then finally, we'll be again doing a guidance advisory opinion for 2023 POU WMPs near the end of the year. So those are the four official documents that we expect for this year. There may be others if we do workshop reports, but these four at least you should be able to see in the document. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we go there, is there any board discussion of the work plan that we want to cover at this point in time?
I just wanted to reiterate, I think you covered the clarification that I attempted to give to Gina. You clarified that in this presentation.
Justin, could you please flip to the work plan slide?
The timeline?
The
Sure, one
timeline, it's
second.
the one before this. So Tim, I just wanted to congratulate you on laying this out and giving us enough time. And I wanted to point out to the rest of the board that we have these deadlines coming up, and that this year our WMP, I want to emphasize, our WMP review is going to be solely recommendations on the guidelines rather than for the past 2 years, we've been reviewing the WMPs and weighing in on those to coordinate with energy safety's evaluation of those. And we're not going to do that this year. We're going to review the filed WMPs and then give a prospective set of recommendations.
For the IOUs.
Correct. Thank you.
Yes, that's an important distinction. Thank you, Vice Chair Fellman. Any other comments? Okay. Should I take it over from here, Tim?
Yes.
Okay. Next slide, please. And okay, we're pleased to be joined today by Nicole Dunlap, Program and Project Supervisor of the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety. Nicole will be giving an update on progress in the Energy Safety Department. Welcome, Nicole.
Thanks, Chair Block. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Nicole Dunlap, and I'm a supervisor in the Energy Safety Policy Division of the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety, or Energy Safety. Today, I'm here to give a brief overview of Energy Safety's 2022 work to date. But before I begin, can everybody hear me okay? Any trouble on the technical side? Okay, thanks. So in 2022, the wildfire mitigation plan evaluation for the investor-owned utilities is underway. This is the third year of a 3-year cycle covering 2020 through 2022. 2020 was the base year for this cycle, and it was also the first year where investor-owned utilities submitted their WMPs using the new format. In 2021, Energy Safety evaluated updates to the utilities 2020 plan, and this year we continue to evaluate progress with an eye towards how the utilities have matured in each of the 52 capabilities assessed by the maturity model. So far, San Diego Gas and Electric Company has submitted their 2022 WMP earlier this month on February 11th. Southern California Edison submitted theirs on February 18th last week, and Pacific Gas and Electric Company will be submitting their WMP this Friday, February 25th. The submission of each WMP starts a 3-month review period for energy safety. So we're early in our review cycle, still completing our completeness checks on those WMPs, and currently don't have any significant findings to report at this time. We are holding a technical workshop to discuss all 3 IOUs WMPs on March 10th, 2022, and we welcome the board's participation and feedback in that workshop. In addition to WMP evaluation, Energy Safety has adopted executive compensation guidelines for the 2022 submissions, which are due from the utilities March 14th this year. The 2022 executive comp guidelines contain standardized reporting templates and will enable us at Energy Safety to understand utility executive compensation structures at a more granular level than we have in years past. Energy Safety is also finalizing our safety culture assessment guidelines with an anticipated adoption date of March 1st. Those guidelines are the roadmap for completing the 2022 safety culture assessments, and they're informed by the safety culture assessment process that was adopted by the Commission late last year. Energy Safety will begin its annual safety culture evaluation as soon as possible after adoption of those guidelines. Energy Safety continues to develop its compliance program to ensure utilities are correctly implementing their WMP initiatives. The compliance team has been and is out in the field and is going to be issuing a number of their inspection findings in the near future. In addition, we've released an updated data schema for spatial data, and we continue to mature data evaluation capabilities and how we collect it from utilities. Finally, Energy Safety continues to develop as a new office within California Natural Resources Agency. We welcomed the Underground Safety Board on January 1st, 2022, and we continue to grow our team to support our statutory mission. We look forward to work with the board and to leverage your expertise in reducing utility-related wildfires in California. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Can you tell us when the next workshop is going to be? Is there a date for that?
The workshop, the next technical workshop is March 10th.
Ah, right. Okay, thank you.
And is that workshop, and thank you so much, Nicole, is that workshop in person or will it still be on Zoom?
Zoom for now, yep. It'll be virtual.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Nicole, for the information. We're really glad that you could be here with us. I'm handing the meeting back to Tim.
Next slide, please. So we've allotted time here for a stretch break. Please, board members and panelists, turn off your cameras, take the opportunity to get some water, stretch, walk around, and get the blood flowing. We'll start the meeting again at 1:45. So please be back up then and get ready to turn your cameras back on. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Hey, Tim, what would you say to giving me one more minute? You're muted, but I'm gonna assume it's a green light.
It's a green light. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll be right back. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Bear with us a minute. We'll start soon. Again, welcome back. Bear with us a minute. We'll start very soon.
All right.
Chair Block, you can welcome everyone back and move on with the meeting now, I think.
Okay, great. Is everybody here? Looks like we might. Be one short, or Alex is there, but has her, there she is. Cool. All right. Okay, cool. I'd like to open this portion of our meeting for discussion on the POU Wildfire Mitigation Plan guidance recommendations that the board's been working on this first quarter of 2022. Board member Porter will provide a brief summary of the recommendations. Off to you, Board member Porter. And you are muted if you are talking.
All right, there we go. What I said was,
Great, cool.
Thank you, Chair Block.
Awesome.
By the way, this is the best board meeting we've had. I get the best part. I get to explain our work product. The 2020 POU WMP guidance advisory draft that we put together. I know in December, I reported on our hurdles to getting to this point today. We had staffing issues, we had IT and technical issues to deal with. We moved from one agency and we're under the umbrella of another, or under an umbrella of another now. But in face of all of that, again, this board again performed and adapted to the obstacles and delivered a very cohesive, congruent a document of recommendations and advisory points for each of the POUs. We decided to do this in 5 particular work streams. If we can go to the next slide. We examined each of the POUs, like I said, in 5 specific work streams. One being the plan, the structure of the plan itself, staffing and evaluations, design, grid design, system hardening, operations and inspections, risk assessment and mapping, veg management, and inspections. Also, we looked at community communication, the fact that many of these POUs or municipal utilities are also the city government that is responsible for citizens, not just ratepayers. Outreach, emergency and preparedness and recovery. The examination of each of the POUs submitted or updates. Again, we took it in consideration that each POU is unique. We saw that with the additional information that we recommended the POUs provide to us, providing red lines or summaries of their updates. And in that uniqueness, we took that in account, not creating broad recommendations, but also allowing us for the first time to really create individual recommendations and advisory points for the 50 POUs and co-ops. Can we move to the next slide, please? So first off, the board recommended that the POUs should integrate, as we see to the left of the slide, a context setting template developed by the board in 2021 and at the beginning of 2022. Moving forward, we're hoping that all of the POUs utilize this. It gives us an opportunity to get to information quicker. It provides a deeper context of who the utility is, what the obstacles are, what their service territory is like, whether or not they have independent generation or they're dependent on an intertie. Similarly, the POU should include a statutory cross-reference table with a live link. It allows us to examine whether or not they're meeting their statutory requirements, instead of having us search through them each time.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
The board also recommends that the POUs establish a broader, more thoughtful objective for their WMPs, going beyond the commonly stated objectives of minimizing source ignitions and increasing grid resiliency. The board encourages more comprehensive objectives as a focus on what happens in an event of an ignition, reducing the spread and preventing probably and mitigating catastrophic impact. We're looking for more in-depth understanding of what they can do beyond just covered conductor or non-expulsion fuses. Also, the board recommends that the POUs, WMPs include better metrics for tracking progress, not just commonly stated metrics, tracking fire ignitions, wire down. In some cases, such as POUs have 100% underground system, wire down, a wire down metric doesn't fit there. The board encourages more performance metrics be included, such as tracking system inspection work, vegetation management work, metrics that are not well tailored to the POU or that are too easy to meet do not provide relevant information for improving wildfire prevention performance. So POU should also include more robust tracking information, providing information about how the utility was performing historically in those selected metrics. So we're also looking for a more robust independent evaluation. A small number of submittals had rudimentary kind of surface evaluations. Those evaluations should be a little bit more comprehensive. They should be more robust regarding the wildfire mitigation efforts and the WMPs. The IE report should provide helpful recommendations, and the POU should implement those recommendations as they see appropriate, or they can actually fund. So we can go to the next slide. The details and hardening measures, the board in general recommended more detail on the POU's actions in their hardening of the system. Where, when, and how, timelines, in a lot more context is needed. This allows us to better examine and understand the WMP as it affects the specific POU. So for the last almost 2.5 years, we haven't had the opportunity to actually examine face-to-face these POUs. We are, as a board, spread out through the state and have access to all 50. However, we haven't had the opportunity to do exploratory visits. And so we have to depend on the text given to us in the WMPs to understand these hardening measures. The board also expects that all POUs will meet GO 95, but we need to understand where you exceed and why GO 95, which in a number of the POUs, WMP submittals, that is the standard answers. We meet or exceed GO 95. We want to understand where you do and why you're exceeding that, so that we have some understanding of that relevant standard. We understand that there are certain structures or certain construction that predate or are grandfathered the actual current GO 95 standards. And I believe May 20th is the current revision. But there are those who have structures that were before 1911, some before 1954, that are grandfathered to previous GO 95 standards. We'd like to understand where they are, why there isn't a plan to mitigate those structures, wire or apparatus. Not many, or I don't believe any of the WMP submittals gave us that information. That's something that we're extremely interested in. The next slide, please. Climate change. There were several who looked to that as a change or an update in their submittals. Burbank was one of them, Glendale another. We actually call out several co-ops and POUs that in the 5 work streams are actually meeting or exceeding the recommendations from our previous document. So looking at their wildfire assessment and how climate change is causing a higher risk to their system and what they're doing with it, how there are potential changes to system design, construction as appropriate. Also, the board recommends appropriate or smarter vegetation management. That includes consideration of what happens when vegetation is removed, what takes its place to avoid instances where wildfire risk may be increased rather than decreased, and to include consideration of overall ecological repercussions of vegetation management techniques. And also, the board recommends better and more complete description of the public safety power shutoff issues, the impact to customers, including the presence or absence of backup supplies, supplemental generation, or the interaction of a neighboring utility in which they rely upon. Expanding more on that and exactly what protocols or programs are in place to assist the customers in PSPS territory. And with that summary, next slide, I think. So as you can see, the scope of the POU service territory, although much smaller than the three IOUs and the small multi-jurisdictional utilities, it is quite spread out and quite diverse. And so we took that into consideration in making these recommendations. They are broad, and for those specific individual POU, some of these recommendations may not apply. However, in the appendix that's been provided, we have provided specific recommendations for each and advisory notes for each POU. Again, we are extremely proud of this product. In the limited scope of accessibility to each one of the POUs, again, and the desire to understand them better, I believe this board has done an extremely good job at putting together this document. Does anybody else have any comments? Perfect. I'd like to give it back to Chair Block.
Let's see. This is the place where we would make any comments about any of the specific sections, correct, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Expanding on something like the veg management recommendation.
Right.
Understanding which is, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. There is a hand raised from the public.
Okay, let's hold on that one for one moment. I would
No
just
problem.
like to say especially on the vegetation management side, what we did, what the board did this time was to divide up our review by region. So that may not be totally apparent in the document, but we're aiming towards focusing more towards regionally specific recommendations and constraints, because not only are the publicly owned utilities very different in terms of what they serve, but there's the very urban ones, there's the very rural ones, but regionally they have very, very different vegetation management needs. And so we're getting one step closer to providing more specific recommendations as it pertains to their ecological, topographic, and climatological environment. And I think that's all I have to say about that. But we are pleased that with what we saw, and Chris, your summary was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. No, to even put a finer point on what you said. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not saying anything.
Oh no, I saw.
I'll wait till you're done, Chris.
We also recognize in examining several of the the POUWMPs and actually doing more research, that there are those who have relatively, you know, I don't want to say low or relatively low likelihood of wildfire ignition. There are a handful that are covered or surrounded by agricultural lands. There are those that are extremely urban. There are those, again, who are 100% underground, and or those that are surrounded on 3 sides by water, very low, and then they abut an extremely urban arena. It's so by breaking them up in regions like you suggested, and we did, gave us a finer point in order to be more specific and laser focused on what was needed and what they were doing well. And again, more information, more context gave us an understanding that the lion's share of them are doing well with the resources that they have. They have limited resources. They aren't investor owned. They don't have the ability to access billions of dollars within a quarter in order to make decisions. So that was it.
Excellent. Thank you. Vice Chair Feldman.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Block. I wanted to commend Board Member Porter for leading this effort. Thank you, because we had to wrestle a lot of moving parts in this, and we wanted to advance to the next level. And I also want to publicly acknowledge our new advisor, Tim Tutt, because without him, this document would not have been possible. And while I'm at it, I'll just shout out to Teresa Graber, without whom our functions would not be possible. But thank you, Tim. I wanted to call those of you in the publicly owned utility ecosystem who are online today, that Tim did come up, and we embrace the idea of the matrix that's in the appendix. And there you'll see comments on each of the publicly owned utilities, in addition to the general overview we provided. We also could not do this work without the collaboration of the utility associations, and I want to make sure I have them: CMUA, SCAPA, NCPA, and the Golden State Power Cooperative. So thank you very much for working with us. As you know, we are tasked with doing the advisory guidance opinions, and we were not given any guidance on how to do them. So we are forging a new pathway here, and we couldn't do it without the input and feedback from the stakeholders in this ecosystem. And I also want to indicate that we did read all the comments that were filed, the public comments, and have made a few changes. Those were noted in red in the latest draft that was posted. So those, if it was posted, but we have made some changes to accommodate the concerns that were raised about whether or not we were acknowledging the unique situation, as Board Member Porter said, of the linkage between the publicly owned utilities and their municipal governments. So those are the end of my comments, Chair Block.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Block, if I may interject, just to follow up on Vice Chair Feldman's comments, I'm not absolutely sure that any red line document was posted, but just in verbal description, we made are proposing changes to the document to reflect the deference to specific emergency notification protocols or communication protocols that exist in many cities and jurisdictions where the utility may not want to be communicating except in collaboration with those emergency protocols or in deference to them. And also that we recognized in the document a little bit more that independent evaluation, industry standards for independent evaluations might be somewhat different for the vast differential group of POUs than for IOUs in general. And finally, we just acknowledge that the WSAB is not engaging in resource planning or integrated resource planning, but we are interested in understanding how aspects of resources affect the whole wildfire situation and the risks and mitigation aspects of in that arena. So those were the 3 or 4 main changes that we made in the document. I just wanted to reiterate that in case that leads to any additional public comment, or so that people out there listening will know what changes are proposed. Thank you.
And I have one follow-up on that, Mr. Tutt. If a stakeholder requests it, could you please provide to them just the pages with the red line, the new language in red, so they can see exactly where it is in the document without having to flip through it or do a compare, but just the pages, not, we'll post the adopted document in its final form, please.
I should be happy to provide that. One last thing I neglected to mention, we do intend to include an appendix 4 in the document, which goes through all the public comments and the board's response, even in cases where we're just acknowledging that the comment was, it was there and didn't necessitate a change in the document.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to hand it to Ralph. Has his hand up.
Yep.
Board Member Armstrong.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Board Member Block, Chairman Block. I too want to just commend the rest of the board and our advisors for the work in getting this out in a timely manner, because I know as we were going through this, many of us experienced the spike in the Omicron virus and had to deal with a lot of issues that were going on at home. So it was quite a lift to get through. Just wanted to touch base on a couple of things in here. I do want to acknowledge the utilities that did, the POUs that did provide the ask, like the red line documents, all the things that made it a lot easier to get through as we were going through this. And again, most of the stuff I know, like Board Member Porter mentioned, there's a lot of places that don't really have a high fire risk. Our job is to look at the ones that could start that are at risk of starting a wildfire. And by breaking it down the way it was a lot easier to digest, to come to the recommendations. One of the things I did notice a lot with a lot of the POUs is when we start talking about the effects on loss, of lost generation, lost power due to a PSPS event, or the ones with the balancing authority. One of what we saw a lot is it was just a lot of that they just said that they weren't at risk with an IOU PSPS event, but trying to understand a little more deeper where they're getting their generation from, and the event of a wildfire that started outside of the jurisdiction, and what impact that would have on their, on their customers was something more that I wish I could have seen a little more of. But again, I just wanted to acknowledge the hard work that everybody done, including the POUs, and making this a lot easier to read. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Armstrong. Let me just take a quick look here at everybody else. Anybody else from the board have any comments at this stage? Okay, then I'd like to hand it back to Mr. Ander for the public comment.
Okay, just give me a second to put up the timer.
Okay.
Okay, Jessica Nelson, I'm going to allow you to speak now.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for, my name's Jessica Nelson. I'm the general manager of Golden State Power Cooperative, which is an association representing California's electric cooperatives. I'm happy to provide comments today on behalf of the joint associations, which we submitted written comments representing both the electric cooperatives and the publicly owned utilities. We've really appreciated the opportunity to provide initial feedback in written comments, and thank you to board member Fellman and staff member Tutt for acknowledging those comments. And we sincerely look forward to seeing the amended red line document and seeing how those comments were incorporated. So thank you for that. We value your thoughtful review and your individualized feedback on the wildfire mitigation plans that each of us submitted. Since each of us are distinctly unique, we really appreciate that individualized feedback this time around. Wildfire mitigation planning and implementation of those plans is an ongoing process for each utility as we seek to be responsive to the changing risk factors and mitigation methods. The timing around the development of the actual WMPs varies between utilities, and some of us have already completed our 2022 updates since their public processes take multiple months for staff development and review and board approval. So for that reason, some of the POUs and co-ops will not have the ability to or capacity to incorporate some of the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board's guidance into their upcoming 2022 WMPs. Similarly, the written feedback provided that we provided this time around was based on the Joint Association's preliminary review of the recommendations, and it was necessarily limited by the requested turnaround time. But moving forward, the utilities will be carefully reviewing all of the board's feedback and incorporating the detailed recommendations into future WMPs as appropriate. So I just really wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and for your ongoing recommendations to enhance our WMPs for both California's electric cooperatives and the publicly owned utilities. So thank you so much for your expertise and for providing some recommendations for us for this round of WMPs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson, and thank you for being here with us. And we will look forward to following up and future collaboration. Let's see. Is that it, Mr. Ander, for public comment?
No other hands raised.
Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone, for the participation and discussion regarding the POU WMP Guidance Advisory Opinion. I will move for a vote to adopt the Guidance Advisory Opinion for the, I guess I should say the whole thing, the 2022 WMPs for electric POUs and rural electric cooperatives. Including the changes in response to public comments we have discussed today. So can I get a first?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the 2022 advisory document as amended.
Thank you, Chris. And can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ralph. Tim, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Block. Can I hear first from Chair Block?
Aye.
And Board Member Armstrong?
Aye.
Board Member Mader?
Aye.
Board Member Sifford?
Aye.
Board Member Porter?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Fellman?
Aye.
Okay.
Chair
Thank
Block
you.
at 6-0.
Thank you. Thanks for the vote. The document is adopted. Next slide, please. Okay, so this concludes the public portion of our board meeting. We will now move to a closed session to discuss personnel matters for the board. Vice Chair Fellman, Mr. Tutt, Ms. Graber, is there anything I'm missing? Anything left?
Just please turn off your cameras and mute yourselves. We're going to be moving to a different structure for the closed session, but we need to keep this meeting open to come back and adjourn.
Okay. So we stay logged in here to this.
Correct.
We mute and turn off our cameras here and then log into our other venue.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thanks, everybody. Thank you all for being here, especially for those from the public who have come in attendance. We appreciate you being here. And we'll see you at the next one in April.
This is supposed to be the closed session.
And, and I was thinking, yeah, sure. I'm going to defer to a little.
Tim, we're in closed session, but your audio is coming through on Zoom. I've been muting you, but please be careful.
see. Mhm. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 of us. Do we need John to adjourn?
You're live, Jessica, in the Zoom. I mean, yeah.
That's
So,
fine.
You're just counting board members, I know.
That's correct. And I see that there are 10 of us in the panel and 3 remaining attendees. A couple whose names I recognize. Hey there, Danny. And Mr. Ander, well, I guess everybody, do we need all 6 of us to adjourn? I'm going to just assume we do not require John to be present to adjourn. And
I am not the lawyer, but I don't believe that you need a roll call vote to adjourn as well. You just need a motion and a second.
This is
okay.
Jeff. This is Jeff Brooks, and agreed.
Chair Block, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our session, our meeting, please.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Excellent. We don't have to vote for that, right? Okay, so as we end, I want to thank members of the public that attended today's meeting and those who participating during the public comment section, especially. Your efforts are helping us help Californians. Thank you all. No roll calls needed. The February 23rd, 2022 board meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending.